to respond to that. It was there. I'm never on. And I don't know how I stumbled across it. I was going to just refer the person to well, that was initially too, but if you want to, you're free to at any time.
Oh, see that.
Nicole, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Trying to get rid of these.
That's okay, I'm here.
I'll grab a few more on my way home, but I won't.
Okay, good. I'll walk them off in the morning.
All right. Okay, it is 7:31. I would like to call this Board of Education regular meeting on March 9th, 2021 to order. Could we go rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Just a housekeeping, make sure your mics are on, please. And also, our recording secretary is Maureen tonight, so we're going to give Maureen some grace tonight and make sure that we give her some time. Before we get started, are there any amendments to the agenda any board members would like to make? Yes, Alexis?
I would like to move that we add 15 as a discussion item so we can discuss the shared services meeting we had with the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Great. Motion by Alexis to add item 15, discussion item, shared services. Got it? Okay, and we'll just move items for the agenda to 16 and adjournment to 17. Motion by Alexis, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. We will add that to our agenda for the evening. All right, we will move on to our communication. Pat, I believe we have a couple letters of resignation.
Yes, we do. So we have a letter of resignation from Melissa Hashem, written to the Board of Ed and to me. It's in your packet. Would you like me to read this? Or
Sure.
Do you think? All right. Dear Interim Superintendent Saccone and Board of Ed Education, please accept this letter as my official notice of resignation, effective today, of Board Clerk for Lebanon Board of Education. I appreciate the work we've been able to accomplish together at Lebanon Board of Education, but as you know, this is a second job for me. I have currently taken on a new role with my current company that requires much more of my time and will no longer be able to provide services at this time. Thank you for the opportunity. And signed, Melissa.
Thank you, Pat. I know we will miss her. We will miss Melissa. She did a fantastic job keeping notes for us, so we wish her well.
Okay. And then we have a second letter of resignation from our business manager. Dear Superintendent Saccone, please be advised that effective Friday, March 26, 2021, I shall be resigning as the business manager for the Lebanon Public Schools. I want to thank the Board of Education and especially Bob Angeli, who provided me with the opportunity to work in Lebanon. Over the years, I made many friends and memories. Working and laughing with all the wonderful people, especially in the central office, will be missed. I will be available on a part-time basis after the 26th of March to assist with the transition if needed. Once again, thank you for the wonderful opportunity. Sincerely, Bob Serpensky.
believe there was some communication you wanted to
Sure.
talk
Yes.
about.
Yes, absolutely. So, Board of Ed members, we all hope that you notice at your places there's just a little token of our appreciation. This is in Connecticut and a number of states Board of Ed Recognition Month. And it is important that we recognize boards of ed for the very special work that they do. This is a serious recognition. I just want to give you a little story. The Maasai tribe, you've probably heard of the Maasai tribe in Africa. They are a tribe of warriors. They have an expression which is their normal greeting, Kasirian Injira. And what that means is they pass one another and greet one another. They don't say hello, they say Kasirian Injira, which means, and how are the children? And the common retort is, all the children are well. And this is meant in this tribe of warriors to acknowledge the high value that is placed on their children's well-being. This nation of warriors expresses that life is good through the knowledge that peace and safety prevails and that their priorities are in the right place. Not so surprisingly, since 1647, when the first public school system was formed, the Constitution placed education authority through the 10th Amendment into the hands of local folks, and most states put that local authority into the hands of the Board of Ed. So whose hands are they? There are over 200,000 Board of Ed members, volunteers who come together as a board to set a vision for their schools to ensure that citizens of the community themselves have a hand in how and the manner in which their children are educated. They do this primarily by creating policies as a dynamic guide for superintendents and for decision making, and they foster excellence and equity in an environment where all students have a chance to realize their potential. So in a community, we hope that every adult among us, parents and non-parents alike, feel an equal weight for the daily care, protection, and success of every child in the community, to the degree that all of our children will grow up and become those adults who feel that equal weight for children who come after them. And that's why we recognize boards of education comprised of members who do just that. Watch over everyone and everything to do with the success and the potential of every child. So we wanted to extend a thank you to the Lebanon Board and its members on Board Recognition Month, because as you all are the Maasai warriors for our kids, the greeting is quite fitting here in Lebanon. Kasirian Injera, and how are the children? And in Lebanon, all the children are well because of the board and the work that the board's doing to support the professionals who work with the children, give us what we need so we can keep doing that work. All the children are well. So thank you. And I hope you'll acknowledge that this was just an idea, and the execution of it goes to Chelsea Williams, who put it all together for you.
That's nice. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Sitting with me for a second. We'll move on to recognition. We have some past leadership and some art students that we'd like to recognize this month. Circle or line?
Line.
All right. So as you can see, we have some of our students, all of our students actually were able to make it this evening. I would like to recognize 4 elementary students here for our Connecticut Association of Schools. We have, and when you hear your name, can you just wave? We have Aidan Patel. There you go. Ellie Lawless. Noah Coplin, and Sienna Wales. These students participated in a very special virtual leadership conference on February 25th. This half-day virtual conference focused on the following fundamental topics, which included leadership, interactive learning, teamwork, equity, and decision-making. The goal of this conference was to demonstrate that multiple talent approach and helping them to establish their own leadership skills. Students were chosen based on observations from our students, from our staff, from their teachers, as well as NWA assessments in both the 3rd and 4th grade. Of course, these students also serve as our Elementary Board of Education representatives who work closely with Delvin and myself once a month. At this time, although one thing I do want to add is they are going to share a few things about the leadership conference that they attended. I was able to join them for that half-day virtual experience, and I learned a few things about leadership as well. So they worked hard. We've had a couple lunches together, and so I know they're excited. And I think a little nervous, but more excited to share a little bit about their experience. So we're going to start first with Ellie.
I am Ellie Wallace, and I'm talking about the Interactive Education Theater by Maggie and Tony. Maggie and Tony taught us about bullying and how it is wrong. They taught it by acting it out. It was really funny. They showed different scenarios, and they did a good job of showing how hurtful bullying really is. I think that it was a good presentation because they did a good job putting it together, and it was so funny.
Nice. Thank you, Ellie. I believe Sienna is next.
Hi, my name is Sienna Will, and I'm going to talk about Kanahula, who was from Hawaii. Kanahula did yoga and mindfulness. She also taught us some Hawaiian words like aloha, which means love, hello, and goodbye. And it is just a kind word in Hawaiian. Aloha also means unconditional love and kindness. Another word that means aloha is shaka. The surfers usually say that. We did some yoga poses such as mountain pose and surfer pose. I like that she taught us about real Hawaiian words. Thank you.
I mean, so the virtual conference was 3 hours long. So it was nice to have, they had, interactive presenters that got them up and moving, and it was really funny. It was fun, too, for me. We have now Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah Coplin, and I'm going to talk about the theater production with Anthony Tapato. Anthony Tapato is a theater educator, actor, director, and playwright. He asked us to pretend things like ice skating, and while we were doing the different movements, he was pretending to take pictures. It was fun because we moved around and imagined different areas in the world.
Thank you, Noah. And finally, we have Aidan Patel.
Hi, I'm Aidan Patel. I'm talking about the closing session of Renetta Bowers, who wrote Free to Be. Her award-winning series, Free to Be, taught us that you are free to be. Her books are written to help kids learn. She told us she worked in a place called the Story Barn. She wanted us to say positive words to other people. She said the core of leadership is asking other people what they are good at and what they care about. I like Renetta Bowers because I wanted to meet a famous author. I learned that I can be anything I want to be.
Thank you, Aidan. So again, we're incredibly proud of these 4th grade students. Today they fine-tuned it, they typed it, they're ready to go. So the middle school will be lucky to have them next year. And I want to thank their parents and their families that supported this. And the day that they had the Board of Ed meeting, they did it from home still. They were responsible. They emailed me. So it's a great experience for me and for them. So thank you. Also, the Connecticut Association of Schools has continued to help celebrate students despite the situation that we are with schools with COVID. And I'm certainly grateful for that because they have continued this just in a different format. So again this year, I've had the opportunity to recognize 2 students in the arts. And these awards go to Solon Ford and Alora Cruz. And these students, again, were recognized for their excellence in the arts and in citizenship. These students will participate in a special virtual evening night on March 30th, where they will, again, experience very special presenters across the state who are related to the arts. So it's usually in person at a very fancy place. So they are doing their best with a virtual evening night. So their families will also be able to attend that night, as well as Miss Schumann, our music teacher, and Miss Johnson, our art teacher. So at this time, Miss Schumann is joining us virtually, and she's going to share a little bit about why she chose Alora Cruz.
Hi, I'm Erin Schumann, the music teacher at LES, and I'm really, really proud to present our CAST Arts Award winner for music, Alora Cruz. She came to us this year, so she's a new student to me, and we're so lucky to have her. She has a lot of natural talent, which is wonderful, but even beyond that, she works so hard. She wants to always do better than she's doing now, which is just going to take her so far in life. And she actually has prepared a little sneak preview of what she'll be playing in our virtual concert, a little piece of music called Lightspeed. So enjoy. You ready, Alora?
Nice job, Alora. She was emailing me, and she's like, how many people are going to be there? How many? You didn't show nervousness at all. And I could see your family in the back. Thank you for supporting the arts, and thank you, Miss Schumann. Nice job. And finally, we do have Miss Johnson in person here today, our art teacher, and she is going to explain why she chose Solon Ford.
Oh, we can see your mirror. Right when I stand in front of it. Hi! I'm going to stand off to the side so everyone can see your beautiful artwork, Solon, but you can hear me, right? Give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me, Solon? Anybody? All right, well, thank you. All right, so I met Solon in first grade, and with this award, it's great to be able to actually get to know a student over time, which is something that music and art teachers have the luxury of doing, getting to know our students over years instead of just the course of one school year. When I first met Solon in first grade, it was my first year here in Lebanon, and I knew right away that she was special. When you think of an art award, you typically think of technical skills.
she's just so much more than that. She brings so much more to the table. When she speaks, people listen. She thinks outside the box when it comes to everything. With her, I mean, she has artistic talent and ability, but it's really like this aura around her in the classroom that she is like, it doesn't matter what group of kids she's with, she's the glue that inspires everybody and brings everybody together. I'm telling you, literally every single time I give an assignment or teach a lesson, she always just has something to say that makes you stop teaching and say, like I just never thought of it that way. Or she just was solving an artistic problem completely different. And what is just the best part about it is that everyone wants to know what she's thinking. Everyone wants to hear what she has to say. So Solon, I just want to tell you that probably the biggest reason, aside from how talented you are, that I chose you for this award is because I want you to understand that it's really important that the world has people like you in it. And that it's very important that you continue to be proud to share your ideas and make sure that you always put your best foot forward, knowing that it's okay if some of your ideas might not be the ones that are chosen, but the world needs to hear what you have to say. So, congratulations, Solon, and thank you for being such an awesome student.
Again, congratulations, Solon. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for sharing such sweet words about Solon. I completely agree with you. Thank you again to the families for letting you guys join in tonight. I know it's a late night. We have school tomorrow. But again, and for supporting education in the arts. We could not do it without all of you and your support. Nice job, boys and girls. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you so much. What a wonderful group.
So great.
Wow, that was mind-blowing.
That was so nice.
That was so great.
On Appreciation Day, too, I'll tell you.
I know.
It's a great day.
Wow. Get back to it. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rita. We will move on with our agenda to the public participation portion. The board will dedicate 30 minutes with each individual speaker offered 2 minutes to speak. Are there any members of the public who would like to participate this evening? Chuck, is it possible we may have somebody that wants to speak on the computer or no? Okay. Okay, thank you. No members seeing, no public participation. We will move along on our agenda to the consent agenda. Are there any motions on the floor?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by John, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands to approve the consent agenda. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving right along to our student representatives report. Hello, Dylan.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Can you guys see me?
Yes.
All set? Alrighty. So to begin, I met again with the elementary school leadership group, which were the 4th graders you guys just met, and they once again did a wonderful job. Just to summarize our meeting, they were very excited for spring, as it means they can go outside, play sports, and a few of them actually get to celebrate their birthdays, so that's also exciting. They also told me about their big plans that they had that had got canceled from COVID, like their trips to New Hampshire and Wisconsin, and one that actually was supposed to go to London. They were originally excited to finally get to go there and see their family, but they look forward to eventually getting around there and finally visiting those places. And I was also going to touch upon the leadership conference that they attended, but I think they did a fantastic job of that, so I won't touch that at all. And finally, one of them is also opening a detective agency, so if any of you have an unsolved case and need a professional detective, please contact me immediately. Just thought I'd put that out there as well. As for the high school, seniors have finally wrapped up their senior project, which I was very excited to hear is getting an update for next year. If I'm correct, they will give an option to do an internship and write a paper on that as opposed to doing a research paper. Personally, I think this is a much better option as there is a lot less stress of an imminent 10-page paper, but instead the students gain much-needed experience in a field through that internship that interests them, which I think is a much better objective to give them experience rather than have them research a topic. And as for some general updates, spring sports are starting up, so everyone is looking forward to that happening. And we also just had some students inducted to our Spanish and French Honor Societies yesterday, which meeting went very smoothly, and I'm happy to report that. Other than that, I was stuck in my house for 2.5 weeks during the past month, so it's a bit of a shorter report than usual as I've been stuck in here. If you guys have any questions for me, go ahead.
I do. Nicole?
Hi, Delton. It's Nicole McGillicuddy.
Hello.
Any progress with getting some representatives from the middle school?
I sent out an email over the weekend. Haven't heard back yet, but I will let you know.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Delton. Thank you so much for another great report, and I hope you get out of the house anytime soon. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Delton.
Okay, we'll move right along to our reports of committee. I always start on this side. No report yet.
I have nothing. I've been involved with her meetings, so I haven't been able to attend these. I'm not picking on her meetings, but much better.
Thank you, Matt. Nicole, finance and facilities.
Okay, so I see that the facilities report is later on in the meeting, so I'm just going to focus on finance. We met on the 23rd of February as a subcommittee. We talked about the capital project list for the Board of Finance because they had an old list, and we narrowed it down to 3 major projects, and one is from each of the schools. So LES, we're working on the ventilation system. LMS, we're working on the abatement issues. And then Lyman, we would like to eventually work on that roof. So those are the 3 major projects, and we forwarded that to the Board of Finance. We talked about the Esser Funds, because we used to call it the LEA Funds, but we got clarification that they're called the Esser Funds. I believe Bob is still in the application process for that. Right. Okay, yep. And so we're just waiting to hear from the state and from the... this is a state grant, right? Not a federal one. Yep, to see how much money we will be getting for that. Okay, that's all about facilities. And then we also met with the Board of Finance on the 2nd of March. We presented our budget to the Board of Finance. Pat did a really great job with a slideshow, and they asked really great questions. We had really great answers. We just walked away with it feeling really good. The Board of Finance actually gave us a compliment saying that we were doing a great job, something I've never heard of from the Board of Finance. So it's just exciting to be able to work with them, and I'm feeling really good about it. So now we're just playing the waiting game to see what happens from that. And I think that's pretty much it for finance, and then we'll talk about facilities later on.
Any questions for Nicole? Don?
Can you remind me the timeline? You said that we're waiting for a response to that. I'm blanking on the timeline because they'll come back, and then I know we go back and forth.
Yeah, it usually takes about a month for them to get in touch with us. So I'm thinking by April we should hear from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we as a board come back again.
So we propose a 3.21%.
budget. So they might come back and say, okay, which, yeah, we would love that to happen. Or they could say, no, we're going to cut you down to this amount, and then we're going to have to come back as a board and figure out what are we cutting. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
There will also be public hearings as part of that process before the Board of Finance makes a decision.
Okay. Yep.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Dawn, communications, goals?
No report.
Thank you. Maureen, policy?
We haven't met since, you see we have things to look at under action items. We will be planning a meeting because there are required annual notices in the list we got from our attorneys and things that should be shown in the handbook and stuff. So I dug out the handbook, and there's going to be things to be addressed. And I'm sure Pat knows more about that than I do because I don't know who's in charge of the handbook. But we will be meeting.
We'll be talking about that soon.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Maureen. Mark?
Nothing from negotiations. Okay.
And our negotiations date did get postponed.
It did get postponed.
So we're waiting on a date that works for all parties. Danelle, curriculum.
Sure. So
strategic plan. Sorry.
We met on March 3rd virtually. 2 items on our agenda was to continue discussion on student success for the 2021 school year. We heard from Mr. Patel and Mr. McCarthy that with spring coming, we have hopes that a lot of the kids that were struggling are going to give themselves a kickstart and get going a little bit. There's hope for sports, and so that motivates a lot of kids to do better when they're doing their homework and things like that. We were wondering how are their needs being met specifically, and so we heard Wednesday afternoons people are meeting with their teachers. There's a lot of tutors that are helping out with the kids, mostly in foreign languages in the high school anyway. Across the board, it's supposed to be that Wednesday is when they get in touch with teachers, or staff can reach out to parents as well, online or after school occasionally. This doesn't always happen. We noted that. Like, those things should be happening, but that doesn't always happen. Let's see. We want to know, we asked for specific numbers of how many kids are actually failing, so that those needs can be specifically addressed. But again, with the spring coming, we're hoping that a lot of people will kickstart themselves and get going. Pat pointed out that a lot of students are struggling with disengagement because of computer fatigue and lack of socialization. And this isn't just at our school. This happens at all schools across the state and across the nation. And then our second part of our meeting, it kind of blended together, but it was a strategic plan update. So we heard a lot from Holly Hollander, our curriculum director, about her overall plans to reach our goals in the strategic plan. We talked about where some gaps might be in the curriculum. There's some places that there's no formal written curriculum that need to be addressed. All of us emphasize the need for communication between all 3 schools, especially transitioning from 4th grade to 5th grade, but also 8th grade to 9th grade. But we need here a clear, we want a coherent curriculum set up, and we have great plans for that. It might require some changes that are uncomfortable, but we're willing to try those things in the future.
Great, thanks, Danelle. Any questions for Danelle? All right, thank you. John, superintendent evaluation?
We did not meet, so there's no report.
And Alexis, safety and security?
No report.
Okay, great. Governance did meet. The committee will be, actually the search committee will be meeting 2 times in the next 2 weeks, moving right along with our superintendent search. And we will, Alexis added a discussion item to discuss the shared services meeting that occurred last night, so we'll talk about that later on in the meeting. Okay, anything I've forgotten with committee reports? All right, moving along to administrators' reports. Rob?
I would just like to add, just so I can clarify, that middle school student rep is Jenny Lopez. She's our student council president. awesome student. So I'll find out what the disconnect is with between her and Dalton, because I set that up earlier in the year. Well, on that note, she's a great student, great ideas for things to do for school spirit. She's been integral in that throughout the year. And actually today, her and I were talking. She's going to set up a virtual family feud where staff compete against students. So that'll be in the works. That should be a fun night that we can offer. We're continuing to try to find things that we can do that involve students that are virtual. And that was one of her ideas today. So I'll be in touch with her. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is she in 8th grade?
Yes.
Is there a possibility of finding a 7th grader to shadow her so that we have someone for next year as well, or?
Sure, because I can just find somebody that's in the student council or somebody who, wants to do that. That's a great idea.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Could I have her name again so I get it spelled right?
Jenny Lopez.
Oh, I can spell that. Thank you.
I just asked Justin to pull up the land cam in the barn. So you'll see that's Sabrina there, and coming in and out of the picture will be the 2 newest members of our Lyman family there. We are expecting some more. Could be any minute now. They're that close.
Wow.
So it's really funny. You'll see them moving around. You'll hear them. There's sound on this. The link is actually in the board packet. So if you feel like you got some time to kill and you want to watch some lambs, go right ahead.
I think you could have made that a fundraising lottery, because I have not seen the lambs yet. I keep going out, and every time I go on, I haven't seen the babies yet.
They're probably like huddled.
500 lambs.
Yeah.
They're about 500 feet down.
Great. Somebody should go out there and chase them. Chase them into our picture.
They are active, though. They're quite active.
I've seen them. One's wearing red, one's wearing blue. Adorable.
And last night they were on top of Mommy's back.
Was that all for the administrator's report? Anything else to add? Okay, great. Well, then we'll move on to the report of the superintendent. Enrollment?
So, yes. Just a quick, you have this in your board packet. We're at 948 students. At the moment, we still have about 24 students in other magnet locations, and we are still right around 36 students who are homeschooled. Last month I also gave you a bit of a picture of, in each of the schools, the number of students who were specifically distance learners exclusively and not in person with us. But I understand from the administrators that that's dropping a little bit as we get a little further away from, the winter months, I guess. Some kids are coming back to us. Does anyone have any questions about the enrollment? Should have all
Just
three.
one. So we lost 3 kids. Is it because they moved out of town, or are they going to other schools?
I don't actually know. I mean, I can compare those to you, but the administrators who are here may know. But I don't have a breakdown on that.
One as a senior, one as a junior, and 2 looks from 9th grade?
The junior and the senior they weren't in our school for long. They just added and then they left. You said
2 in 9th grade?
2 in 9th grade. I'm gonna have to go back and check that.
But it looks like that's up from back on the in November.
Yeah.
So we're down to last. Yeah, I had to go back and look. But I know that the two that we lost, the junior and the senior, that was, like I said, it was just, they weren't in line with the long.
Okay. And then, Robbie, I think you lost two, one in 5th grade and one in 7th. Did they move away?
I haven't.
Yeah, okay. Just curious.
Any other questions on enrollment? Some?
Just to follow up on what Nicole's questions were, I think I'm still confused about when somebody disenrolls from our school system, what is the process? And so who would know these answers? So, like, I know at the elementary school level since December we've lost, not lost, but 2 young families with young children moved out of state for various reasons. But I know that because I know them. So I'm just wondering the process of data collection.
Yeah, I would assume, it doesn't come directly to me. I collect the numbers for the board reports. The administrators would be knowing that, and I'm sure any of the guidance counselors would know. I am anecdotally aware, so I do chat with parents, so know, for example, one elementary school family is getting ready to move due to a transfer, and they have contacted and asked about, specific things that I would get involved in, whether or not we would be accepting of their children in a remote way. So I would learn of it that way. But once they disenroll them, it is the school's work to make sure that the cumulative records are following them, and all of those things get passed around. But we can certainly provide a report. I wouldn't want to give too many specifics because we're small, and that sort of highlights a family. But we could certainly do that.
One question that pops to mind, and it's not a question that we need answered today by any means, just something to think about. When you look at the overall enrollment report, there's really not a huge difference with our enrollment in Lyman and LMS. The huge difference, what I'm noticing right now, is pre-K and K. And I'm wondering if that is because families are opting to keep them home longer, keep younger students home longer. Do we have any semblance of an idea? What might that look like next fall? How many friends will be rejoining us? Will they be joining us as pre-K students? Will they be rejoining us as K students? Are there, I'm just wondering that question. Are there families that have just kind of held them back? Because I know the district I work in sort of seems to be a trend. We sort of want to hold on to the kids a little bit longer because of the circumstances. So I'm wondering, is that what we're sort of noticing now? Again, we don't have to answer that now. It's just a observation. Maybe we could discuss it next month.
Absolutely. I would share with you, though, that I had this very conversation not several hours ago with Rita, because, and it blends into the next part of the report, which is the school update around COVID, that the State Department has developed a true collaboration with the Office of Early Childhood in terms of systems and enrollment numbers and all of that. And the Office of Early Childhood has been pleading for more spaces because they are as painfully aware as we are that many children will begin to come to us, could even come as far as kindergarten, without ever learning how to sit in a circle. They don't know those kinds of things because they're being kind of held back. So I did call our elementary principal, Rita, and we were talking about where our numbers are. And my question is, to add to yours, could we take more? Right now, the Office of Early Childhood has their own class size guideline of 16, and they've now bumped that with State Department blessing to 20 could we take 20? But what that means when you're looking at the NIAC accreditation and all of that is that we'd have to hire additional people. So there are things that we need to think about, but it's interesting that they're starting to really notice and how important this would be. And this is what, this has been my mantra. It's in those earlier grades that we want to grow our enrollment. It doesn't happen by rating other high schools and that sort of thing. So
it's true.
Great question.
Yeah, and we have the good fortune in this town that preschool is not a pay for preschool program. That's covered, and although it is a half-day program, there's no fee for families. So that's something that, I'm not sure if all families are aware of. I mean, I'm sure we do a great job discussing that and advertising that, but it might be something for us to look a little bit deeper into the future. Dawn?
One thing that I would love for Rita to talk about, she mentioned during the curriculum meeting when we were talking about the disconnect is the wrong word, but where all of the students might be, and she talked about the beauty of the pre-K and kindergarten grades being in the same hallway, and that was something that really, as she talked about it, really spoke to me, because I know people who are keeping their pre-K age kids out because they don't want them to experience pre-K on a computer or whatever, whatever the reason is. But that was one thing that I just thought was that it made me feel very hopeful for the students who are coming in as kindergartners.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions for a moment? School updates? Okay.
So, the update around COVID is good news. It's maybe tempered with a little bit of disappointment. I'm saddened to say that as we move through this period of time where vaccinations finally have opened up to educators and younger age groups, we still have quite a few cases popping up in our schools. I'm sure you've seen my end-of-week memos. I hate to have to report it in that way, but we are, getting 2 to 3, sometimes as many as 5 new cases a week. And it's not happening in the schools. It tends to be in the community and in seems to be a lot more of families experiencing it, mom, dad, someone, in the household having the virus, and then kids are coming down with it as well. So just, continuing to monitor that. Once we have those cases reported, of course, the contact tracing becomes difficult. And that, sadly, is when distance learners are a blessing, because if they haven't been in the school, the contact tracing and the spread is less in the school community and with the staff. The other big news around COVID right now is this whole vaccination process. And as much as we have made ourselves available, and I have worked sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day with the health authority, what we're trying to do is, to get as much location information to our staff to be able to get them through the vaccination process in this promised month of March. That this would be for educators as well as the over 55-year-olds. There are changes to quarantining as people become vaccinated and have the second dose of whatever it is that they've got, or have been vaccinated with Johnson & Johnson. It's changing the way that we can respond to needs for people to quarantine. If they're fully vaccinated, which means 14 days out from the second dose or the first and only dose of Johnson & Johnson, they would not be required to quarantine. In order for us to know this when we are contact tracing, it doesn't change the fact that we need to notify people that they may have been exposed. But we're not required, we don't have to require people to quarantine if they've been fully vaccinated or they're at that stage. Problem is, that requires us asking our adults, have you been vaccinated? And the jury is a bit out on that as to whether or not we can actually ask that. We have to be very, very careful in terms of employment law to be asking folks that question, or somehow by asking, implying that you should have it. We may very well have folks with us who don't want it, who've made a conscious decision not to be vaccinated. So there are a lot of privacy issues and personal health issues that come into that. But it does impact our ability to contact trace and to require quarantining to keep everybody else safe. So the other thing that we want to be careful of is having people who are among our ranks asking one another those same questions. So I think in terms of COVID update, that's the update of concern right now. Our emphasis is switching in terms of how we're trying to respond to cases and keep everybody safe. So, any questions on that?
If you're doing contact tracing and you come across somebody, you're talking to them on the phone, when you just say that, I don't know if maybe you're doing it this way, but if you have been vaccinated, then you would not have to quarantine without asking them, have you been vaccinated?
Yeah, and that's exactly. Yes, exactly. The issue with that, though, is some folks who have been vaccinated, and I would say reach that level of fully vaccinated 14 days from their second dose, sometimes respond with, well, I'm still worried. I'm not necessarily believing that I'm completely, I can still get it. I know I'm being told I can't transmit it, but I'm not sure, and I want to stay out and quarantine. So there are, some considerations that pop up that way. But yeah, I'm trying anyway, not to ask. And I think our administrators are doing a good job of that. But, you're sort of betwixt and between providing the information, making sure people are safe, and then that barrier of being careful. So, but yes, it is more of a point of information. It's always been about educating rather than flat out asking. Most people will respond, but there are those who are concerned.
I have a question. If a teacher or staff member is vaccinated and has side effects and needs to take a day off, is that a sick day that they have to take?
Yeah.
Or is that... Okay.
Yeah, it is a sick day. These are growing issues right now. I believe some of you may have come to understand what happened in Colchester today, for example, where they had a clinic and everyone was able to be vaccinated at the very same time. And they had to close school because, good 17 staff members were out with the side effects. So, in some ways, our opportunity to provide dedicated clinics have been more farmed out, if you will, and maybe in a way that's been better for us. Any other questions? Yeah?
Not really a question, just more of a statement to support you. Being in the medical field, some of the people do have very, very profound side effects. Very profound, quite debilitating. I've had individuals that came into work after their second shot and were literally had to be brought home by someone else.
Yeah.
So it can be quite tough.
Yeah.
I'm not just letting you know that it can be quite tough.
We've had our experiences with that, and I'm very well aware of, and it tends to be younger people. My own mother is close to 90 and had 2 shots of Pfizer and has been running laps around. She's like amazing, and yet colleagues who are in that 55-year-old range, especially those who have had COVID and recovered, but have the first dose, I think that probably lends itself to what you would know more about, whether or not the first dose is actually the second dose for those who have had COVID. We don't know. But I mean, people 55 years old having 104 fever for 3 days, just really almost like having COVID all over again. So yes, we're mindful that we could, our folks, I'm sure that's contributing to some who don't want to be vaccinated as well.
Thank you, Pat. I do have another question.
Go ahead.
On a different note, but related to COVID. I'm wondering if there is any discussion about the building use being a little bit more free now that the spring's coming. I know that the reopening committee voted in June to not allow any outside groups to use the buildings, but then the policy committee in September approved building use for any immediate school groups like the VOAG, FFA, Booster Club, things like that. But nobody's using buildings because they're told that they can't. I know it's up to each administrator, but I'm just wondering if that is going to be loosened a little bit with the spring, with cases going down, et cetera.
Well, that is not something that, in terms of reconvening committees that we're working on, the reopening plan or whatever, we can certainly do that. I just approved a use of facilities, but it was for outside grounds. I believe it was the Little League using a parking lot for their activities. We're still closed to the public just walking in and out of the buildings. But if that's something that the board would like to reconvene, we can certainly do that. Right now, I think it's March 19th that the governor is starting to open more things. And I just attended a State Department and Public Health Department meeting this morning on some of the, pretty sure I have it with me and I'll pull it out. But it's some of the things that are changing are starting to open up, and yet they're still giving us advisement that we have to be really careful, about all of the mitigation things. And I think that's where the push me pull you is, that when you have other groups in, are they wearing the mask wearing and all of that. So today's indications were that once you are fully vaccinated, meaning full 14 days from the second shot, or full 14 days from the Johnson & Johnson, which is only one shot, you can be with someone without a mask and 6 feet or less than 6 feet, as long as that other person is also fully vaccinated. So how we would ensure that, I'm not sure. But if that's something that, the board would like to reopen, certainly we can do that. We can certainly do that. I'm suspecting that I'd like to see us get into the months where we can be more outside and we can have windows open and we can have activities outside and those kinds of things.
Also when we're not a red community. Right. We are in the red right now. Not all communities are in the state. So as long as we're in the red, that, but that's just one person.
Yeah. We have, it's so unfortunate that we bumped up the way we have.
I think I'm just concerned about, for instance, we had the French and Spanish Honor Society induction, and as far as I know, parents were not allowed to go to that. We have senior nights for sports, and parents aren't allowed to go to that. This is their senior year, when some of them have been playing their entire lives for this special night with their parents, and they can't go in the gym, and it's not a capacity issue, because there's not that many people in the gym. We have 2 seniors on the basketball team, and we won't let 4 parents go in the gym for their senior night. I think that's really sad. And it's not just our district. I think the ECC decided that at the beginning, and it's like, it's only 4 people. That's like telling 4 JV players to go sit in the hall so they can come in, but it's not even a capacity issue. It's just this strict guideline that parents can't go for their senior night. And I feel for those families, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it, but then at the same time we can talk about it and look at numbers and things like that. And in certain situations that maybe things could be looked at differently. We don't have 8 seniors, we have 2. So that's 4 parents.
To be sure, they have lost a lot in their senior year. In my former district, we had a young man who made his 1,000th career basketball point in an empty gym. It is very difficult.
Any other thoughts on that? All right, move along to strategic plan.
Yeah, so this one will be brief. In looking at the strategic plan, I know we've started to think about progress on the goals that are in. This is a plan from 2019 to 2024. So we're at a place in the school year where we've really got to start looking at each school producing its annual review or annual report on what is happening. I know that the high school has begun that work. I'm sure the other schools have started as well, but one of the things that we really need to do is to look at the strategic plan through the lens of what our curriculum director is knocking herself out over, and that's getting us ready not only to complete the assessment that's associated with the Esser $2, but to meet the State Department guidelines on what is actually happening and what has happened with this whole year of instruction. Because the truth of the matter is, it isn't just a little gap, it's not just the students who are solely distance learning or those that have been in and out, and times that we've had to put people in and out in this process, but there's true learning loss. And it's coupled with tremendous social and emotional growth gaps. And I have kind of driven the administrators crazy with the fact that I'm not going to say social and emotional learning anymore, because that's not what the social and emotional piece is all about. It's about growth in their social and emotional abilities to really survive. And I think that also goes to this tremendous fatigue that we see kids experiencing. So cognitively and in terms of academics, there is learning loss, and there are gaps in social and emotional growth. And so, I've asked the administrators during our admin council, and we're going to be meeting again tomorrow. It's a big central piece on our agenda, to be looking through the lens of the strategic plan and what are some of the things that we have to address there. And I think, and I'm quite certain, given what Holly had even shared with me in terms of a template that she's making to sort of address these areas, that we're going to look at progress on the strategic plan goals through those lenses. And that also informs our curriculum. So that's where I am right now with what's happening with our strategic plan. I'm not going to say that we need to committee the strategic plan and go back and maybe revise that plan. I think the plan is certainly serviceable, but we need to look at it through these lenses. It's just not a static, how do we hire, how do we recruit and retain. It's impacting everything, including curriculum development and assessment. Assessment.
Any questions on that? Okay, great. We'll move on to the parent-student handbook revision project.
Yes, and that is, thank you very much. This is also on our agenda for tomorrow, but we were able to secure, purchase, if you will, a copy of CABE's Model Parent-Guardian Handbook. We have it now. We also have an electronic version of it. And
excuse me, Pat.
Yes.
You're having trouble hearing you.
This is. Let's see. I'm not going to help in the room. Yeah, I don't want to take this off, but let me try to speak up a little bit more.
It's a milk cooler, so I can't plug it in.
You have to speak louder, Pat. I'll give it a shot. I'm the quietest person on the planet. If you take a quick look, and our administrators have not been able to look at this yet, but let's put it this way. Revision of parent-student handbooks is usually a big summertime project, but I'm looking at this a little bit earlier to help out, and also because our board member, McCall, who is an amazing policy revisionist person, has put a lot of policies on our agendas. We passed a raft of them last time. We're looking at more this time. And there have been so many statutory changes and laws that are enacting policy changes. And she rightly brought up the notion that we have so much policy language that's changed. Is it really reflected in our handbooks? And it simply is not and can't have been. And this is a year that is going to signal a lot of changes and revisions in our handbooks. And so in order to get ready for that, I did, at our chair's insistence, get a copy of the CABE template. As I said, we have it electronically, and right off the bat, it's covering an awful lot of topics that have changed. There's language around discipline, there's language around COVID, there's language around distance and remote learning. There's all kinds of pandemic and emergency things, which are going to be important if we continue with COVID, and we're hearing we are through the fall and into the start of the new year. So there's a lot of stuff there that we have to do, but this is going to be a heavy lift, and I'm wanting to get this started as early as possible. Thank you for putting that project out, because I think it's going to be a lonely job if it's left to just our administrators all summer long. It's big enough lift. It's looking like that there would need to be maybe a committee in each school so that the administrators have some input from staff that work in these areas. So that's where we're going.
Idea to have a board member or two on that committee. Pat, I know someone who tends to be really great at these type of things.
Yeah, I can't wait. Typically speaking, you would be looking at 3 committees So a committee in each school that would do the initial work and support and help the administrators. But absolutely, having a board member, I don't know that a board member would want to go to each one of those, but if we could sort of split that out, or have a board member working with me that acts as a clearinghouse to be objective readers as well for those
Through that
handbooks.
policy lens would be helpful too. Dawn?
Thinking about policies, I know that there have been a lot that are not COVID related, so that obviously would need to be discussed. But the ones that are specific to COVID, the current end date is June.
Yeah.
Unless we as a board or the state mandate or however it works.
Yeah.
But we as a board can end it earlier or extend it. And so that would be a consideration in terms of this work, correct?
I would think so.
I have a question. I'm not sure what policy you're referring to.
Well, there's multiple. So we've approved multiple policy updates, but it's been a policy update, but it's also a COVID policy update, and so they're numbered accordingly. And the COVID policy update currently ends June.
The end of June.
Yeah, but the language in there is unless we as a board choose to end it earlier or extend it. And so I would hate for that to be missed in this conversation and then applied to the handbook.
Right. And I would hate to have, our policy manual is about this fat. And I don't think that all the language that's in our policy needs to get into the handbook if we can refer to the policy manual but still have enough guts in there so that it's understandable what the specific language is really referring to.
I really have to, in order to be helpful in this regard, I have to really look through those 3 different handbooks, or the handbooks that the schools are using, because there should not be the repetition of policies. Generally speaking, in a secondary ed student-parent handbook, you would have full discipline policy language and stuff like that. But every other policy does not need to be in a handbook, and it shouldn't be, because if a parent does need to refer, they should be looking at the policy in the policy area. And hopefully we're going to have them, online, and they are posted. Yes, absolutely.
Well, great. Thank you, Pat, for getting us started with this heavy lift. Much appreciated. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the facilities report.
Okay. You want me to start?
So, Wednesday, March 3rd, I met with Anchor Engineering and walked the 56 lane for the original replacement project. It was sending us pricing to proceed with an opinion of construction costs within the next week. I provided them with the missing expenses document proving their expenses. I also asked them to provide a configuration to include functional windows. This coming Friday, March 12th, again, it's LES. With the mechanical, we disconnected the exhaust system will be replaced. They finally came in after 6 months of being backward. They will be replaced Saturday the 13th. A crane will be there Saturday to facilitate this work. And they'll block off the hot 56 lane area, so we could probably send out an email probably Friday to staff and tell them that building is not available to be occupied on Saturday. Our next point is SIP as a SIP project. The building management system upgrade. SNA building systems will replace the ADR meeting control panels and the enterprise server. The control panels for all the district automation become obsolete. A letter of explanation that's been included in the board package. So that's under SNE and it's under SIP. My next bullet point is the meeting of your unit. detailed construction cost document has been turned to the board as well and discussed it at the subcommittee level. The engineer suggests adding 20% for the cost of the project. This will add $45,139.50 additionally, bringing the new total $270,837. The subcommittee also directed me to additionally add the first phase of wing make up there to that project, so I will meet with the engineer again to add that to the project. I'll get back to the subcommittee with the cost moving forward for that project as well. Lastly on my list, district radar assessment has been completed. We did the 5-year test for all three schools. CRC environmental came out 224, we replaced the monitor, 26 we removed them. I got the report back this afternoon. There's only 2 areas that are concerned of us. They're both at Lyman, that's room 13 and room 15. They're slightly above the threshold for radon gas. Room 13 is 4.3, room 15 is 4.2. The current is 4.0. The way I instructed CRC environmental to do is come back into a retest. Then we will average the test. If they're still above the threshold, I will ask for a mitigator to come out and find out mitigation for those 2 spaces at the high school. That's the facility report. Any questions?
Kevin, can you repeat the first 2 that you said?
The first 2 was on what, windows?
The one right before the SIP project. What was the one right before the SIP project?
Okay, so Friday, March 12th. The lubrication services will be out. The disconnect, the exhaust fans are going to be replaced on the 13th.
And this is just the first grade wing?
No. These I have a whole list of exhaust fans. Last year, we flagged 8 exhaust fans in the elementary school that needed replacement. We ordered the exhaust fans. They were backward twice.
Okay.
We just got the exhaust fans in last week.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. But it is what it is. I mean, I can't get parts. There's a lot of parts right now. Manufacturing is, for COVID, is horrendous trying to get parts.
So this is for the entire LES, correct?
I have 3 in the first wing.
Yep.
I have 3 in the 66 wing. I have 3 in the age area. I have 1 the gym, that's the third, the gym bathroom. I also have 1 that I'm going to replace fan shaft areas, the third staff lounge. It's still money. 1/3 of staff lounge is still money, but it's just very noisy.
Yep. So how many total was that?
9 total with a repair.
Yep.
Okay. 2 replacements, 1 repair.
Okay. All right, and then what did you say about the security system? Was it?
I didn't think about security.
No, the SIP project. What are you calling it?
Oh, the SIP project, the building automation system.
Yep.
Okay, so that was on SIP, the approved SIP list. Mm-hmm. I put a thing in the board pack and outlining SNE.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's titled Messaging Going System EMS Control System Upgrades.
Mm-hmm. So
I can't put in for $35. I came in at $37,550.
Okay, is that work being done now, or that's just the quote?
No, that's just the quote, and I actually on a letter of waiver at the back. I also included in the another sitting bag the GAS list, Department of Administrative Services, so that verifies with the lowest price. I also included a letter from Snyder Electric backing up that the factory will support any emergency or every endorsement themselves.
Okay, and once this automation system is done, how long will this last?
That did get about 5 years for about
20? 20?
20. The system's been there currently all 49 years.
Okay.
I can speak a little bit about the system because I have to install it on his machine and his laptop. There's flash players that we have to backdate from 3 years ago. And if we update the flash player, the automation system does no longer work. So that's just telling them how outdated the automation system is, that we have to actually, we can't do an upgrade. So there's security issues there as well.
Okay. And this automation system is for all 3 schools, correct?
Yeah, all 3 schools, and then might as well, I mean, like you in their position, so, I mean, it still works good. I mean, because we can see everything running and he sees all the temperatures and we can do it from home or from here, but it's very outdated. I mean, even not that it matters, but even the graphics, if you look at the graphics, you're like, oh, what is that from my days or something?
Okay. All right, is that it, Kevin?
Yeah, I can't give the administrators out the system, and they've been asking me for a couple of years now to be able to access the system, look at the school. So that would allow them to access the school.
Good.
That's it.
Good.
I'm just curious, will any of these upgrades potentially come under energy credits or any rebates for energy purposes?
Not elementary systems on that. The roof for the high school was definitely, when we use the roof for the high school, we need to look at it as possibly to be some big dollar savings there if we, depending on what style roof we replace it with.
Nicole, do you have anything else?
No, just from the subcommittee that we met today, just an update on the lighting project. Kevin reports that from February 26th, they have, Eversource has 3 weeks to get their paperwork in. That puts us to the 19th of March. And again, these rebates have to be, all the paperwork has to be done in order for us to take advantage of these rebates by April. So that's why we have to stay on top of this to make sure that we take advantage of those incentives. The committee today reported that there is no interest in the Lyman Solar project with the canopies in the parking lot, and there is no interest because it's a canopy. Now, if it was on the roof, and of course we have to replace the roof, there might be interest there. So we'll have to look into that when we get ready to do the roof for Lyman. And that's it. So we're just getting, for the ventilation system at LES, we're getting not only the first grade wing cost to put a ventilation system there, we're also getting the windows quote from the engineering services with asbestos removal because there is asbestos around those windows. And that's it.
Nicole, any questions for either Kevin or Nicole? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our finance report, 2020-2021 budget.
Okay, here we go. In your packet, what I left on everyone's table was a 3.21 budget placed in the traditional budget book format, and that's simply a grouping by subject. So that, I believe you also have an electronic copy. So that's for your having to hold and to write and look at and whatever you'd like to do with it. I think what I'd like to do is focus on the 2021 budget to give you a sense of why I think we'll have a surplus of, right now, a range of 175 to 225, and I think that could be conservative. There's 5 main areas that are contributing to that. If you recall, the budget process from last year, we went into the Board of Finance for a 2.85% increase, and we ended up getting the money, but in a little bit of a different way. There was a $100,000 increase with the ability to draw on the lapsing fund from the funds that would be deposited in there from the previous year, which would have been about $290,000 to $300,000. One of the big negatives in last year's budget was our expected reimbursement on the excess cost grant. We were dropping down to about $325,000. Well, when the budget was only increased by the $100,000 level, we waited till about September to make modifications to the budget, and the board approved some budget transfers en masse. At that time, the special ed director had a better handle, and we had transfers in and out of the district for her student placements. And we learned to expect that the excess cost grant would be about $455,000, which was way better than the $325,000. Well, in February, based on her December filing, we found out that the grant is going to come in about $492,000. So that was really good for the district. We're ending up doing about $37,000 better than that up number. So if you compare it back to the original budget number, it's about $163,000 higher. When you add to that $40,000 to the good on magnet school transportation, we were unfortunate in hiring a curriculum director from a work standpoint, but that helped the budget out by about $60,000. So those three items alone add up to $263,000 to the good, and those numbers are not going to change. So that's a pretty hard number in the bank, so to speak. Currently, we're running a lot less on substitute expense, and I'm expecting we could end up about $40,000 to the good in that area. So when you add those four items up, you're over $300,000. And then special ed is also based on their placements, and granted, this is the wild card. It could change some between now and the end of the year. At the beginning of the month, March 1st, they're expected to come in about $200,000 to the good, too. So that money of $500,000 is enough to cover the added expenses that we've had due to COVID, hiring the fourth grade teacher, and the overage and health insurance. And as we get into April, we should be able to make some strategic decisions on possibly how to spend some funds but still have enough money to turn back to the town. So I think that's the nutshell of 2021 on where we stand, and each week we continue to monitor it as each payroll passes and purchase orders are approved, and buildings continue to buy their supplies for the rest of the year. So if you have any questions related to 2021, I'd be glad to take them.
Just a quick one. So the surplus you said is between $175,000 and $225,000?
Yes, and that's, as every day passes, it's going to become easier and easier to harden that number up.
Okay. And how do we decide how much we have to give back to the town? Is that like a set number, or can we keep this money?
There's a high degree of subjectivity there. I mean, the Board of Finance knows that we are expected to give money back.
But is there like a specific formula?
No, there's no formula. I mean, I think there's a good relationship between the Board of Finance and the Board of Education, and the board has not had a history of going out and spending money just to spend money. Last year, the board directed or encouraged the district to spend appropriately towards the end of the year, and purchases were made that were helpful for this year. I think if we were to do things like that, the Board of Finance would not have difficulty. Since I've been here, the board has never gone out willy-nilly and spent money just to spend it, as opposed to giving it back to the town.
Yeah.
And even though we bought things last year, we still turned back $290,000.
If I may, I'm probably helping that along a little bit, that decision, by looking at some items that I feel we removed from the budget for next year, but they are reasonable things and things that we really should have now. Just had that conversation with Bob today on 2 bundles of calculators for the high school, which they really need, and also a textbook series for 9th grade, I think it is, world language. We are also looking at and about to have a presentation through our curriculum director on a data collection system that we think will be really helpful in terms of zeroing in on where learning gaps and losses are. So we're looking at those things. Those are very reasonable, justifiable kinds of things, and if we can do them now, it doesn't present the town with, oh my God, between June 8th and June 30th, suddenly, we're spending $200,000, of the budget. And it's easier, it's better for the good folks that manage those numbers as well. So we're very mindful of that and mindful of what might help. But, we did a couple of them. Now we'll wait, as Bob says, maybe let's wait till the end of March to do any more so he can see what solidifies.
Last year, because of the excess in money of the buses and stuff like that, like for transportation, can some of this money be done again, paid forward into the next year, or not really?
Well, we had a credit last year for transportation that did not occur.
Right.
So we used the credit this year against this year's bill. To the extent, if we were to have a negotiated credit for some transportation that didn't happen, right now most of the savings that will incur on transportation is in student transportation for trips that did not happen, and those trips are on a pay-as-you-go as opposed to the regular contract. And the same thing with these special ed placements. So it depends on how some of that might happen.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions for Bob? Anna?
So you're looking at things that are one-time purchases that money could be used for potentially?
Can you help me out a little?
Sorry. Like a one-time project, I imagine administrators are sitting here thinking, well, we've always wanted to get that, but there was never any money for it. Could that money be used for, I don't know what, let's say something in the ag department, or supplies or a field or something like that?
Yeah, that's up to the building principals and the superintendent and the Board of Education, to
So
decide.
they're one-time projects, they're not something that's going to be...
Not capital projects, but operating expenses.
Yeah.
And that was done in previous years. In fact, that one year when we had a significant amount of money, that's how I believe we purchased 788 Chromebooks in one shot. And that was done with operating money. So things like that was done with board approval and going out to bid and so on and so forth. So if we got into April or May and the number becomes a little more than wet cement, it's a harder number. The board and through the superintendent and building principals found some purchase like that if it was buying more Chromebooks or doing something that would benefit the district long term. That would be a perfectly acceptable use of funds.
So they should
probably be supported by the Board of Finance as well.
One thing we really have to be careful of, though, is ensuring that these things, whatever that we do buy and purchase, is aligned with our strategic plan. The whole process that we've sort of gone through. We have to make sure that we are fulfilling our goals and fulfilling our the goals that we've set, checking off the boxes, if it's a curriculum that we need and we're noticing that, somewhere down the line or sooner rather than later we're going to need a new math curriculum, then, that would be appropriate to take a look at that, but it has to be something that, in my mind, that we would need this year, but we would also need next year and the year after, sustainable, aligned purchases, I think. So it's really important that we keep that in our minds.
Yeah, and to that point, as Pat mentioned, the purchase that she approved with working with Jay and Sam at the high school was for world language textbooks and the calculator bundles that were going to be in the budget but had been cut.
Exactly. Any other questions on the 2020-21 budget? Okay, we'll move on to the COVID relief fund.
Nothing new on that front. I know Pat and I and Holly met yesterday, I believe it was, looking for the application that is coming, and it hasn't come yet, so we're waiting anxiously to get started on that.
I think it's interesting to note, though, and Bob, you were probably going to share this as well, that we also have this thing that's moved through the federal government, the American Recovery Act piece that has come along, and we were in the news, and reporters were running around because Lebanon was going to get $1,040,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we said very carefully to everyone, let's be careful because we don't even know what the set-aside is yet. We don't know, what the state will do. Well, more information came out, still speculative, but it was referred to us through CAPS working with the Office of, with OPM. And they did a breakdown, and suddenly this award that we're waiting for is $1,046,000 is now really more in the range of 563, was it, Bob? 563,000. So you can see, now that's not final, and that's just a stab as well, but it's a very different stab than what.
And to add to that, as Pat said, they had referenced a 20% set aside for student gap learning, and that amount was $220 million. So if that were to be true, that sum of money would be distributed to the districts around the state based on some formula. And as Pat referenced, the whole document was qualified by statement. This is just an estimate, and the actual numbers will vary and change as we get them. So we don't know what the next version will look like.
Keep in mind. All right, how about the 21-22 budget? Any changes?
I think we're in a holding pattern.
Yeah, I just thought the Board of Finance meeting echoing Nicole's sentiments went very well.
Agreed. It's a collaborative, positive meeting, so it's great to see that. Thanks, Bob. All right, we will move along on our agenda to the action items. Our first action item is action on letters of resignation.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the letters of resignation with regret.
Second. Motion by John, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion?
I have a discussion. Can we tell Bob he can't do it?
No, we cannot.
Okay. Can we just not accept his resignation?
No, we cannot.
Oh, well. It's a thought. Oh, wait a minute. John, you made it, and who seconded it?
Me.
Oh, who else?
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the letters of resignation, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Okay, now item number 2, act on the 2021-22 tuition rate. We're going to need a little bit of background on this. I believe our paper is in the packet.
Yeah, it is in your packet, and I guess you can raise your tuition no more than 2.5%, as you know, and opted for 2% in your last review of this, up to $11,652. unfortunately, because of COVID and all of that, I think the board, help me out here, I think you decided to remain where you were the previous year at $11,004. I think it's $453.
I think that we were asked by the Bosworth superintendent, one of our sending districts, to reconsider for the year, and we obliged, but we also felt that it would be fair to remain flat with all of our sending districts.
Right. So what you're voting on this evening, I would think, is the $11,652 to bump up 2%.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Well, okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the 2021-2022 tuition rate with a 2% increase.
Thanks, John. Motion by John. Is there a second?
Can we discuss it first?
We can discuss it after.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alexis. All right, motion by John, seconded by Alexis. Discussion.
So what would be the positives of increasing this? I mean, is it obvious reasons because everything else is going up, so we need to increase as well?
Well, our salary, I mean, we're looking at a 3.1% increase in our budget. So
right.
It seems to me like it should be closer to that number than the 2%.
Right, but so the negative would be that a lot of people are falling on hard times, and I don't think next year is going to be any different, right? So what would be the benefit of not increasing it? This is what I'm asking. Is there a benefit?
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, you're asking the people of Lebanon, we're asking the people of Lebanon to come with a 3-point plus, I don't remember the exact, I'm sorry, increase in their budget to us, which means it'll probably increase the mill rate if it goes through. So you're asking the people of Lebanon to pay more. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the people that are coming in from another district to pay the same amount.
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Dawn?
Maybe I missed it, but are we comparable with what other districts charge? I too I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this at this very moment, but I'm not opposed to it, but I'm questioning the same things. What are people getting for paying more to come to our district, and how are we comparable to others?
I don't know if that research was done last year when you went up 2%.
I'm not certain, but I believe NFA went up 3%.
This year?
They're over $13,000 per year. I can verify that, but that's what I believe.
Do we know about any other districts that went up too, just to compare? No.
I think my district went up.
Yeah.
I think I'm looking for towns that offer comparable educational experiences to Lebanon. So, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head
Well,
around it.
in the case of E.O. Smith, I mean, there's an ag ed piece to both of them. E.O. Smith offers that ag program too. So it is comparable, I guess, to what we offer here. Different size school and all that, but I mean, the ag piece is there.
Go ahead.
And just like to dovetail on Matt's point, the people paying the tuition are not the individual families, it's the town. So even though it is a difficult economic time, the 2% is borne by all the taxpayers of Foster or Franklin or Sprague, as opposed to the 6 or 7 or 8 families who are sending the people here.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? Matt?
I am going to say, if we vote on this particular thing, I'm going to vote against the 2% raise, not because it's 2%, but because I think it should be more than 2%.
You know, the maximum we can go is 2.5.
Right. I understand that. But we did zero last year. Zero.
The one thing that I would say in sort of in the opposite viewpoint would be this, Matt, only because, again, we're all having hard times, but we also want to do our best to attract students to Lyman, particularly. We have a lot of sending schools around us, and I want to make sure that we don't scare anybody off by increasing it too much too soon. Do you know what I mean?
That is on the balance. If you raise the price, you could discourage people wanting to come to the district. So, 2% is a reasonable number.
Bob, do you want to explain the difference between the VOAG and the regular sending town tuition rate? That might help.
You're referencing the $6,220.
Yeah.
That's the state tuition rate that the town gets paid for students who come from other towns. So, and that money goes directly to the town. In the event that the grant, called the ASCII grant, is greater than the previous year's amount, that difference has to revert back to the program. So for this current year, I believe the ASCII grant was $315,000 in change, and it ended up being $20,000 higher than the previous year. So Jay and his VOAG department get to spend that money on the VOAG program. So if that were to happen again next year, any amount above $315,000 that should come to the town has to be spent by the VOAG program.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of increasing our 2021-22 tuition rate by 2% to $11,652, please raise your hand. Okay, Maureen, that's Nicole, Dawn, Maureen, Sarah, Alexis, John, Danelle, and Mark. All those opposed? Matt is opposed? And there are no abstentions. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along. Next item on the next action item is the 2021-22 special ed rate.
And again, this is in your packet, the special education rates, and these are the rates that have been established for services that we're doing here and things that students do need. The language aptitude test is the new one for us to help us to determine the credit waiver piece. This was prepared by Cheryl for us, and I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Bob?
Are we making a motion?
If you'd like to, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, it took me a while to find that page.
Motion to approve the 2021-22 special education rates.
51, Matt.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Nicole, seconded by John to approve the special education rate. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the 2021-22 special education rates as presented, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Okay. We have quite a few policies. Looking for some action tonight. Maureen?
I recommend we pass them all.
Yeah. Can I make a motion? Motion to approve numbers 4 through 14. of the policy, are we calling them what word am I looking for here?
Well, we approved them. Their second reading, I will approve adoption.
Second reading of action items numbers 4 through 14.
Okay, motion by Nicole to approve.
Adopt or whatever.
Policies in the action items number 4 through 14 by Nicole.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Matt. Any discussion? Sorry, Mark. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving action items 4 through 14, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, at this point in our evening, there's a anticipated executive session on the agenda. Is there a motion on the floor? Matt?
Take a motion to go into executive session.
Second. For the purpose of
discussing personnel matters.
Do we want to invite anybody?
Could you tell me what the
Do we want to invite her?
We do want to invite Pat, and we'd also like to invite Mr. Sapensky.
Where is Mr. Sapensky?
I think he left. Okay. So,
Sarah, you forgot number 15.
It's next. It's going to be after. Oh, here's Mr. Sapensky. Matt, would you make a motion to invite Pat and?
Yes, Pat.
And Bob. Thank you.
See her last
Could you tell me what time it is, please?
It is 9:21. Motion by Matt to go into executive session. Is there a second, Matt?
Nicole.
Thank you. Any discussion?
He can have it, that's fine.
We go to Mark?
All those in favor of going into executive session? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Yes, 9:21.
I can have another bite of cookie.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that myself.
My stomach is grumbling. Even though I'm
That's why your stomach is going. Hey, don't get over the way before I have
I tell you what, my driveway is 1,000 feet long.
Cookie. It's the batter.
Nine.
My sister makes me at every holiday the chocolate chipless, we call them, for Pat. I like vanilla.
I bet she's going to be guessing.
The batter.
Right.
Really, my sister got me one of those for Christmas. I think it's like 95%. It is hard to eat.
Baking chocolate?
These masks gotta go. I can't. I'm so sick.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't working. No.
This is terrible.
Yeah, it's a trail mix.
Is Jacques coming?
BJ's. It's got chunks of chocolate in it besides the nuts and the raisins.
Okay.
Okay, it's 9:57. We'll come back out of executive session, back into regular session. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to extend to 10:30.
Thank you, Matt. Motion to extend the meeting no later than 10:30 made by Matt.
Second that.
Seconded by Mark.
Oh, Mark, you're on fire today.
All those in favor?
Had these great cookies.
That passes unanimously. We'll extend later until no later than 10:30. Okay, is there... There's an action item on the agenda to act on a personnel matter. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to grant 36 days under the bargaining contract 5C1E for the regarding the person we discussed in executive session.
And I'll second that.
Great. Maureen, did you get that?
Yes.
Motion by Alexis, seconded by Mark. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the 36 days of sick leave, please raise your hand. That is...
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Okay. I got it. Alexis, Mark, Danelle, John, Sarah, Dawn, Nicole. All those opposed?
I abstain.
All those abstaining? Matt and Maureen will abstain. Thank you. Motion passes.
You have to understand, we come from we don't come from the school. We come from personal working for, companies that don't give you that sort of thing.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to move along to our item that we added to our agenda, which was the discussion item about shared services. So last night, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Ed members got together to discuss potential shared services. Fortunately, Nicole, Dawn, and Alexis were also in attendance, and Pat as well, and Bob, so Steve is also there. So I will do my best to sort of summarize, and the rest of you feel free to pipe in if you feel like I'm missing anything or you should reiterate what I'm saying. So the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the vacancy. The Board of Finance and Selectmen were notified of Bob's departure from the business manager position or a vacancy. And as you probably recall, 2 years ago, there were conversations of sharing services between the town and the Board of Education in the area of finance. The conversation sort of got close but never finished, and the conversations just ended. We're not sure if they ended because of COVID. We're not sure what the exact reason was that they ended. But with the vacancy, the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, they kind of were alerted, maybe we need to start these conversations now again. So we met, we discussed what their sort of vision would be and what the benefits would be of working together in this type of shared service would look like. And I wanted to get my notes to share because I wrote exactly down what they had said, the Board of Finance said. Their sort of vision is that they would have one finance director that sort of oversees the school and the town, and that the town has their business senior finance analyst, and that the school would have someone similar to that person. Not sort of what Bob does already, since he sort of does all of that, right? It would help because it would bring this person would be familiar with policies and procedures. It could be a more streamlined approach between the town and the school. This is from the Board of Finance perspective. There would be less cross-training needed, or there would be more cross-training, so that if somebody were sick or someone was out for payroll, somebody could sort of help and fill in those gaps. And the overarching person would sort of be a visionary leader and sort of come up with new and creative ways to be more efficient within the town and the board. Here are some cons. The cons are we need somebody now. We need somebody now. We know that Bob has so graciously offered the time with us, but we know that we need somebody in this position who is ready to get the ball rolling ASAP, especially with the transitions that we're going through with COVID, all the grants that we're going to be writing, and trying to figure out. It's a priority for us right now. here's another con. The other con is that job descriptions have not been created. A vision has not sort of been yet set. We don't have a plan to come together yet. It's just kind of like there's a vacancy and we have to do something now before we hire, which I appreciate, right? Would be an opportune time to do something now while we have a vacancy and then sort of restructure. My thought right now, and you can feel free to create your own idea on this, is that we don't have that luxury right now to think about that from that perspective. How we left it last night, I brought up the idea of potentially finding somebody that could fill in the shoes for 1 year. I realize that is not ideal. We can talk that through, what the applicant pool would look like for 1 year. It could look totally different than a permanent position. It's just was an idea, but what we did say, I asked the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen if I could come back to you, talk to you all about what your thoughts are about this shared services agreement, whether or not we can afford to do that right now, or whether we need some good solid time to come back as a town together if we're going to do it right. I've spoken with Pat about this quite a bit. As you all know, Bob's position is pretty in depth, right? I think she did say there were 6 pages in his job description. And he does quite a bit. Thinking about that person doing all of the things that Bob is doing and all of the things that the town might need to do is, I don't know if Bob will tell us it's probably doable for one person, but it's probably, we're talking about a tiny applicant pool that may be able to do that.
Is this person, would this be the same level as Bob, like where you're, conceptually with the sharing of resources, or not?
From my understanding and from the conversations that we have had with Liz, I think that this person would be kind of like maybe even a little bit of a promotion from what Bob is doing right now, because they would be the finance director of both the school system and the town, and then sort of branch down.
Okay. So how long would it take us, Pat, if we posted a position to fill Bob's position, just posting it? Because there may be, I'm just thinking out loud here a little bit, but there may be somebody could retire from one district and maybe take another job. I don't know if that's possible, or there may be someone available.
It is posted, isn't it? It's posted right now.
It's posted right now.
Mm-hmm. As a permanent position, not a 1 year.
Is what it is currently.
Yes, as Bob Sapinski.
Okay, it's posted. Okay.
It's been right, business manager.
It's been posted on Connecticut REAP only. I haven't yet put it on all of the other sites, the CASBO site and so on. It's been posted for just a few days. I think it's 2 or 3 days. There are 4 applicants in there.
Okay.
But they are, people that are certified, have the 085. These are career-oriented individuals. The likelihood, I think, of finding someone who just wants a position like that for a year, and the difficulty of where we are right now with the town not really don't have a job description, they don't have the momentum behind it right now. We wouldn't be able to say to a person, if you come with us, you would have an opportunity to apply for the other position. So we've got issues with, consistency, and I think if I were to pull the position and put it's a durational position, if that's the language I think I would use, it's 1 year duration, I think we would be looking at an entirely different kind of applicant pool. The thing that's so interesting is that in the conversation, at least from my perspective, when asked what I thought, you have to look at what is the goal of this and what is the end game, and everyone quite agrees it's not to save money, because it's not going to save money, because there is going to have to be a person here, because this school district business management is that you're just not doing bookkeeping and accounting, but you're managing the affairs. That's the description, the affairs of a school district. The affairs of a school district are impacted by 250 people in our employ, benefits management, all of those things that come under the purview of that office and the superintendent. You're impacted by relative laws, and we know what's happened in Connecticut and across the country, that since we've decided to manage education by legislation, 1,000,001 things come at you that way, by grants, by state regulations, by the Board of Ed policies, and so on. So it's a very, very fluid position. And with all due respect, Bob has done this job for a zillion years. I think you're a zillion years old, Bob. Not as old as I am, but and up there you have a lot of experience, and you do this. You can flex with these things, but we need that. We need to get somebody to that place. So my point is, we're still going to need someone, and the person who goes into the town position is going to need somebody as a contact and a connection here. And we get into the areas of supervision and all of those things.
I have a question for Bob. I'm going to put you on the spot, buddy. Do you feel, realistically, in your opinion, that your job could be done with as one person and also doing what the town's going to expect of you and be able to do what you're currently doing for us?
No, and I don't think that's the town's expectation either. I think there's not a cost savings here. There'd be a person like Val over at someone, either Sarah or Pat, someone in the town hall like that, someone like that over here, and then one person that would serve as the finance director for the whole town that would be responsible for both the school side and the town side, from the treasury functions, the budgeting of both the town and the school board. Have to attend all the board of finance meetings, the board of selectmen meetings, the board of ed meetings, and so on and so forth. Town of Mansfield is currently looking for a position very similar to that. If you went on the Hasbro website, you can see the job posting for that. That's been posted since February 25th, I believe.
Right now we have two, Bob and Val. What he's talking about is getting three.
Right.
Yeah, right. When Veronica left from the town side, I was still doing this job and filling in over there.
Right, I know that.
And there's no way anybody in their right mind would try to do that.
Right.
It just can't be done.
Yeah, Matt, the shared services part is the person overseeing, so you'd be adding that person. No, but we would have to share half that salary. So our budget would go up by half that salary. The town would pay that salary in half, and we would pay. That's the shared piece.
Okay, so we would have, for lack of a better, just to educate me here, we'd have a Bob 2.0 and then a Bob 3.0 above him?
No, we have a half of Bob's salary, and then we have a senior analyst, which I believe is less than a business manager, correct? Yeah.
Or a lesser paid business manager. Still, someone would need to go 85 certification, and could be.
But the overall thing at the end of the day is we're spending more money.
Yes.
Yes. Well, the town would be spending more money. I don't know what this person's salary was, but let's just use $100,000 for easy numbers. We would have to increase $50,000, and so would the town, because we'd have to share that supervisory position up top.
Okay. Thank you.
But the positive of that is if, let's say, our business person was sick or out, then the Bob person could take over, and we would have someone there.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, I think that the cross-training and your almost like disaster recovery, I think it's a smart way you need to. I think that's why they started the conversation last year, whenever they started those conversations, and they were moving. But everyone was moving at a pace that was like, all right, let's see what happens. Well, now that it's here, I just think it's unfair for everyone to expect us just to, because it's on our side, that we're just going to react right now. I think it's a great concept. I think it's horrible timing.
Yes, I totally agree.
I don't think that we're ready, and I don't think it's fair to put everybody through that. We're already unstable. We're looking for it. Pat's going to do the best she can. We have the luxury of having Bob for 20 hours to get us through this, but I also don't think putting somebody in that position for a year, I think we're going to get horrible, horrible results. If you look at, there's a lot of shifting going around now, not just in the school systems. There's a lot of shifting going on in my industry, and I'm sure you can see executives are moving all over the place now. And I think COVID's starting to release everybody. Economy's starting to pick up a little bit, so people are shifting.
And not to mention, we have an election in November where we could have another shift.
Exactly. So listening to the meeting last night, it is a great concept, and I think that we eventually need to go there for the strength of the town, because people do get sick and stuff does happen, but I don't think now is the time. I think we need to get ourselves stable and then have those conversations later.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I agree with you on that, because the timetable, what's best for the district right now, what's best for us right now.
Yeah, that's like a we're talking short term is like right now. We can't even look beyond March right now. I mean, let's just face it. Not to look out a year from now. That's not fair to them to put us on this. That's just my opinion.
And we did voice that last night. We did voice that to the board members on the other boards. And I do feel like they were receptive. I do feel like they were understanding and supportive. And we suggested a July meeting to reconvene. But I did want to bring back to them our conversation and your thoughts as well. Because we did not have quorum yesterday, which is fine. We didn't need it. But I did want to bring it back to all of you for the opportunity to voice your opinion on that.
A thought. So, I too am a little bit nervous about this 1-year position because just the quality of the applicants. Like right now, we're getting applicants that are assuming this is going to be a full-time position, correct? So, and I love how we're going to meet again in July. So why don't we? In hiring this person, we hire a business manager, like a full-time one. And then when we start reorganizing, and then we're going to have shared services with the town, we can have this person possibly apply for that position, or they can, something like that. I feel like we need to get a Bob right now to help handle us and all of our grants and our budget requests and everything that's coming up. And then in July, we can revisit shifting all this, and creating a new position and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying. I'm concerned because I'm not I don't know what any of the job descriptions look like, and I'm afraid that if we put out a job description or text the current job description, so that we could get a business manager, and then everything shifted, we already know that everything is going to shift, so it would be like hiring this person to say, well, everything is going to change, so expect everything to change, and if you want to stay, great. If you want to apply, like your supervisor's going to change, it just seems it seems too much to me.
But at least we have the opportunity, if this person is not doing a good job, let's say, and when we create that new position, they can apply and we can opt to hire them or not.
Even if we opt to hire them or not, doesn't mean they lose their current position.
No, but if we're changing the job descriptions, now they have to reapply all over again.
Well, Bob, maybe you can help us with this. So, we hire a replacement for you, right? And then let's say in a year and a half or 2 years, we decide that we now have the funds and we're all agreeing to share the services of this director. We'll call this person because we never got an answer last night of what the definitions were. But the person supervising town hall, accounting person, and obviously the person here for the district. Currently now, who is your supervisor? Right, so it's the superintendent. So at that point in time, this director, your job wouldn't really change, right?
What would happen, and what's happening other times, is shared person, your contractual between the board and the town side, and did this 4 days for the Board of Ed. It wasn't quite a shared service, but it was 4 days for the Board of Ed, 1 day for the town. The town would pay 20% of the salary and pick up the fringe benefits, and the Board of Ed would do the rest. It always wasn't 80-20 in terms of the workload. Some days it was 3 days at the town. It just worked out.
But you're talking about the third person. But we would still have somebody here 5 days, or the entire school year.
And ideally, you'd want to have a central office with my assistant Cheryl, Aaron from the town hall, Valerie, business manager here, and this director all in one place. Because we use the town and the board use the same payroll system. We have 2 people doing payroll, which makes no sense. Both 2 people doing accounts payable. You wouldn't do Westward, but one person would be designated to do payroll. You'd have a backup for the other person. One would do payroll. You'd have a backup. It works out really well that way, and then you could have them do other duties as it works out. My assistant actually helps Jock out because he doesn't have an administrative assistant, and the same thing with Kevin on the facility side. Bigger districts each have their own. So you get some economies of scale, and it would be a good idea for the town going forward. But it's going to take time. It's not something that any town can just put together.
Exactly. So like we're looking at like a long-term 3 to 5 years to realistically probably get something in place.
It would take at least a year to. You have to have job description, and contractual arrangements, figure out where the space is. Aaron's position is a union position, so you have, here it's not a union position, so you have to work those things out. You're talking about 2 or 3 boards. The reality is anything like that would take time.
Who would be the boss, Bob? If it was a shared service for that director, would it be both the superintendent?
It would be split between the board of ed, which would usually be the superintendent,
and the first selectman? Okay.
And then the director is the direct supervisor of the business manager or whatever.
Of the whole finance department. Yeah. That person would have to go to the board of finance meetings, the board of education meetings, the selectmen meetings, or whatever, the treasury, banking, all those things.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that the Board of Ed is in support of replacing Bob's position full-time, not 1 year.
Right.
And reconvening conversations with the town, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance in July, potentially for a future restructure.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
Vote on that.
I think so.
Sarah's point, the next meeting is going to be in July, which is basically 4 months. So if you look fast forward 4 months, now you don't further ahead than you are today.
Yeah. And we can also change our minds, too.
Continually from now, in terms of forming a shared service, you'd be no further ahead in July than you are right now.
True. Matt?
Just as a side question, do we have to vote on his offer?
We talked about that. No, we don't.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no.
I was just asking.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Are we on next agenda items?
We are on the next agenda items for the next agenda.
Okay, I have one.
Okay.
I think we need to discuss what's going to happen with the teachers' children that are attending the school, because that was only a 1-year thing. But what if those teachers want to extend that another year? We have to talk about that.
Okay.
Because I know one of the
Because
I know one of the teachers is interested, so.
Anything else? Okay, as always, feel free to email agenda items as well. We will adjourn at 10:22. Thank you very much for that marathon.
Thank you.
Touch your gavel. That's my
I didn't even touch it.
I can't touch it. You are Madam in charge. I ever use it. I would love it.
do it all.
Oh, I'm doing it in November, don't you worry.
No.
Sign up.
What?
That was the deal.
I said, well, you know, you're better at it.
They went.
What kind?
John, you have any? I'm going to bring this to work with me.
Yeah, these are really fun. The little basket. Huh? No, come on.